My prince consort is a traitor and rebel. I've died 7 times by his blade. I am a doomed princess of a fallen kingdom. Yet I dared to defy fate and rewrite my destiny. After plotting for countless lifetimes, this time I aligned myself with his nemesis. From then on, I became the cat, and he became the mouse. After a long separation, my prince consort returned with a pregnant woman. Princess Yunyao is with child and cannot perform the ritual vow. This servant begs your forgiveness on her behalf. Zhuang Qiong, who'd always glared at me with cold fury, now groveled before me for the first time, all for a woman. I stared into his icy eyes, silent for a long moment before saying, "Your mother is dead." I wasn't joking. It was true. She just closed her eyes. Still warm. Zhuang Qiong knelt on one knee, rigid as a terracotta warrior. His straight back trembled slightly, his expression a mask of suppressed agony. He rose and strode away, leaving me in the chill of the spring wind. Yunyao followed behind him, glancing my way with the corner of her eye, as if Zhuang Qiong's terminally ill mother had been stabbed to death by my hand. Whatever. If there's blame to be had, it's all mine anyway. I've died 7 times already. I should have learned to let it go by now. This is the 8th cycle I've endured since rebirth. I'm neither the pure as snow female lead nor the innocent as a lotus supporting character. Beautiful face. Black heart, that sums up my entire life. Honestly, I'm speechless. Black-hearted? So beneath my ample bosom lies a throbbing, bleeding piece of tofu. Is that it? Back in my bedroom, I collapsed onto the bed. Ying chattered incessantly by my ear, one moment scolding Zhuang Qiong for his audacity, the next reassuring me not to overthink things. She feared I'd receive another letter from Zhuang Qiong like yesterday's, only to collapse into darkness after reading it. Princess, it's already noon. What would you like to eat? I'll have the kitchen prepare it. I rolled over in bed, my voice devoid of emotion. I want to die. Preferably a complete death, vanishing into nothingness. In my past life, Zhuang Qiong sent me away with a cup of poisoned wine. The bitter taste of sorrow gnawing at my bones still lingers. This life, I opened my eyes only to be sent back again. Heaven, did I desecrate your ancestors' graves? Is this how you play with me? True to her name, Ying was a whiny little thing. The moment I mentioned death, she collapsed onto the floor, wailing. If anyone deserves to die, it's the prince consort. Princess, let's return to the palace at once and ask His Majesty to sentence him to death. The Emperor cherishes you most. Useless. I've lived 7 lifetimes. Except for the first 3, where I poured my heart out for Zhuang Qiong. Every subsequent life began with me scheming how to kill him the moment I opened my eyes. My dim-witted father, whenever I hatched some scheme, would rush to dissuade me. The border is tense. He'd say, the court lacks capable men. Zhuang Qiong cannot be killed. One must sacrifice the lesser self for the greater good. Well then, father, one moment you're incompetent and foolish. The next you're sacrificing your own kin for the greater good. This complete collapse of your persona truly makes me wonder, are you targeting me? As dusk approached, Zhuang Qiong came to see me, implying he wanted to arrange accommodations for Yunyao. Wherever you stay, she stays. What's there to arrange? Zhuang Qiong shot me a cold stare, his tightly pressed thin lips betraying a hint of ruthlessness. He said nothing, his expression so grim it seemed he'd suffered the gravest insult. I took a sip of tea and pondered. Oh, right, at this moment, I was utterly and hopelessly in love with him, wishing I could chain him to my waistband. Wherever I am, he must be, and now with Yunyao's growing belly. The thought made me burst out laughing. What? Is my bed too small for your amorous antics? His brow furrowed deeply as he gently rebuked me. Princess, your usual lack of restraint is one thing, But now your language is unbecoming. Who corrupted you during my year away? His eyes darted toward Ying as he spoke. He blamed me for his loss of dignity, but I sneered coldly. It wasn't like I hadn't seen such things before. Once, I'd walked in on Zhuang Qiong and some nameless woman burning with passion on my bed. That lifetime, he'd driven me to my death with sheer frustration. Ying pathetically knelt on the floor, whimpering pitifully. Your Highness, spare me. You've brought shame upon me. But this is my fault. Had I not been so subservient to Zhuang Qiong, he'd never have dared lord it over me. Ying, you are my servant. Without my command, who dares punish you? Arise. I snatched the teacup and hurled it at Zhuang Qiong's feet, sending water and tea leaves splashing onto his shoes. General, this is the princess's residence, not a frontier battlefield. Must I seek your permission for every word I speak or deed I do? Zhuang Qiong prized cleanliness above all. Soiling his clothes and defying him today felt like courting death. His expression darkened, but only for an instant. He swiftly regained his composure, his voice softening as he asked, Your Highness is quite right. This servant has overstepped. Yet seeing your grievances, perhaps we should discuss them? Let me understand where I erred, so I may mend my ways. What I dreaded most was his cold, unreadable stare. To me, it was like a blade suspended over my head, ready to fall at any moment. My resolve snapped like a twig after just 2 seconds. Fear of Zhuang Qiong was etched into my very DNA. I crumbled. Helpless, blame it on this man's ruthlessness. If he weren't ruthless, how could he dare be a rebel and traitor? I forced myself to appear calm. Snorting with a mock laugh, how could I dare harbor resentment toward a general whose achievements overshadow his sovereign? Beyond my courtyard, Miss Yunyao may reside wherever she pleases. As her due date approaches and she requires companionship, the general may move in with her. Once, I'd done everything in my power to keep him by my side. Yet even sharing a bed night after night, though we lay upon the same mattress, we drifted apart like 2 small boats adrift on the sea, tossed far apart by the waves. Even so, I often woke from dreams with a smile. Zhuang Qiong seemed taken aback, likely not expecting me to let him go willingly. With a meaningful glance, he said, Your Highness, Yunyao thanks you for your great kindness. I stayed hidden throughout the entire mourning period, holed up in the lake pavilion poring over erotic novels, quite the thrilling way to pass the days. The artist's skill was extraordinary, their vivid depictions made one's blood boil and body tremble with desire. At noon, I drifted into a daytime reverie. In the dream, 2 naked figures entwined, and as they tangled, the powerful man hoisted me up and executed a shoulder throw. My lack of intimate experience meant my erotic dreams transformed directly into gladiatorial combat. A princess reduced to a nun. I sighed, Ying. What do you think about me finding a male companion to play with? Ying? No answer came for a long while. Slowly opening my eyes, I saw Zhuang Qiong standing in the pavilion center. His expression fierce, ruthless, and yet tinged with hurt. Today marks the 7th day since Mother's passing. Yet the princess hasn't even lit a single stick of incense. I hear he entrusted all funeral arrangements for the old lady to Yunyao. With her swollen belly, she's been parading among the nobles with the air of a proper matriarch. What need is there for me to intrude? The old lady never favored this palace. If I were to offer incense, she'd likely choke on her pride. Zhuang Qiong's gaze turned icy. He approached me with a forced smile. The moment he sat down, I shifted my hips to move farther away. Today, the Marquis of Anping visited the estate. Not seeing the princess, he assumed I had mistreated her and flew into a terrible rage. As he spoke, he edged closer to me. I shifted with his movement, sliding even farther away. The Marquis of Anping is my maternal grandfather. In his youth, He was a formidable general. I smiled at Zhuang Qiong. So that's what this was about. The Marquis commands the Imperial Guard. Now advanced in years and past his prime. He seeks a successor to take his place. Zhuang Qiong has long coveted control of the Imperial Guard. Should he succeed, it would add a significant weight to his plans for rebellion and treason. Considering this, he feared provoking the Marquis of Anping's displeasure. So he sought me out to speak well of him. It was unfortunate. Though Zhuang Qiong, as the male lead in the original story, lived a life of grand adventure and smooth sailing, there was one person who always managed to outmaneuver him. That person was Zhou Yuanshua, the third prince of the enemy kingdom. The moment this third Prince Zhou appeared, legions of readers defected to his side, hailing him as the most protagonist-like supporting character in history. Zhou Yuanshua's screen time was limited. Yet whenever he appeared, Zhuang Qiong's schemes inevitably crumbled. Mad and treacherous. He was a ticking time bomb. It was he who snatched the position of Imperial Guard commander. So, who was it for? Zhuang Qiong narrowed his eyes, raising an eyebrow at me. Poor man. He didn't realize his fate had long been written. Even more pitiful was me, knowing I was just an extra. Knowing I couldn't change the outcome. You needn't worry about your reputation. I'll explain to the Marquis of Anping myself. I am the sovereign, the old lady is the subject. Should I really have to concern myself with her funeral arrangements? I was the capricious one. If anyone was wronged, it was you. As I offered half-hearted excuses. Zhuang Qiong silently cornered me until my back pressed against the crimson pavilion pillar, leaving nowhere left to retreat. Seeing my discomfort, his expression brimmed with satisfaction, like a cat that had caught a mouse. Utterly triumphant. Outside, whispers spread, the minister was driven from the princess's bedchamber. Surely a sign of falling favor. The youngest son of the chancellor, who's long admired the princess, must be waiting for her to divorce me so he can move into the princess's residence. Out of habit, I tried to decipher his meaning. Could he be hinting that I should beg him to return to bed? Hasn't he had enough of these days of sleeping in the same bed yet dreaming different dreams? I rose, unable to bear it any longer, cursing myself for being played like a fool. General, you are a man of great power. Even if I wished to divorce you, His Majesty would never consent. Do as you please, there is no need to grovel before me. And do not disturb my carefree days. Death awaits us all eventually. For now, I wish only to live joyfully. I heard there's a place in the city that trains male favorites for high-ranking officials and nobles. I sent Ying to investigate. She returned, clapping her hooves excitedly, claiming she'd found me a fallen immortal. From afar, he looked robust and imposing. I suspect her either has questionable taste or suffers from a lack of education. Yet this burly, fallen immortal genuinely piqued my interest, after all. Robust health matters most. On the day he arrived, fearing my withered blossom might shame me, I steeled my resolve, closed my eyes, and swallowed a magic pill to heighten the mood. Ying gasped in alarm. The mansion has been swarming with patrols lately, doubled in numbers. I wasn't even sure how to sneak him in. And now you've gone and swallowed that potion. That good-for-nothing Ying was scared of Zhuang Qiong. Humph. I couldn't care less about him, even if he were the king of heaven himself. Fortunately, things went smoothly. Just as I was drifting off, Ying arrived with the men. She whispered to me, "Princess, your luck has turned. He looks even more pleasing to the eye than the past 2 days." I'd lost all patience. I shoved her out the door, then lunged at the blurry figure like a bully. Maybe the medicine was too strong, that night was a hazy blur. I only remember being so exhausted I tried to run away, only for him to grab my wrist and pull me back, insisting I see it through. Covering my flushed cheeks, I couldn't fathom how anyone dared treat me so brazenly. Worse still, this man lay sound asleep beside me, having even snatched my blanket and pillow. I sneezed, then decided, to fit my brutal persona, I'd grab my fist and smack the fallen immoral across the face. His brow twitched slightly as he slowly opened his eyes, murmuring, "How? How dare you? How dare? Who's being bold? Me? Must be dreaming." His irises were a pale shade, and now, bathed in the bright spring light, his eyes sparkled like they'd been dusted with gold powder. Moments later, he snapped back to awareness with a drawn-out "oh." Noticing my half-exposed body, he pulled me into his embrace and shamelessly declared, "The princess's bed is a bit small. We'll just have to squeeze." What? Don't think your good looks give you license to get frisky with me. I kicked out several times, sending him tumbling off the bed like he was riding a wind firewheel. The wild man glared at me, murderous intent in his eyes. He didn't back down just because I was a princess, a man of iron will. This one. Awake? I snorted coldly, trying to look cool, but my pain-stricken expression betrayed me. Awake? Then hurry and call the court physician. This palace lady has sprained her back. I'd kicked him too hard just now. Lying motionless on the bed, stiff as a desiccated corpse, my pathetic state amused the wild man standing by the bed. I heard him mutter under his breath, "Useless little thing." I'd intended to punish him severely, but he stood up stark naked, flaunting his 8-pack abs with reckless abandon, successfully diverting my attention with his good looks. He dressed with deliberate slowness. From afar, his posture was tall and imposing, though not exactly like a bear's broad back. It certainly bore no resemblance to it. Before leaving, he glanced at me and smirked condescendingly. "How utterly ridiculous. Your Highness. You must rest well. Your constitution isn't even as sturdy as my grandmother's. How could you possibly manage?" Unable to strike him, I pounded the bed in fury. "How dare you? How dare you mock this princess?" I demanded he stay and explain himself, but he ignored me, striding toward the door with long, swift steps. As he vanished from sight, I cried out tearfully, "Don't forget to have Ying summon the imperial physician for me." Ah! I lay in bed for 3 days. Idleness made my mouth crave something, and suddenly I remembered the rose-flavored hawthorn from the western regions. I sent Ying to fetch some. After a long while, she returned empty-handed, gritting her teeth as she came to complain. It turned out Yin Yao craved sour foods during her pregnancy, so Zhuang Qiong had the kitchen send all the rose-flavored sour jujubes to her. Incensed, Ying went to demand an explanation. Rose-flavored hawthorn berries were tribute items. How dare she eat them? Worse, she deliberately saved the pits, claiming it was an old folk remedy from her hometown, that drinking hawthorn pit broth would help conceive a noble heir. She wanted me to bring them back to nourish the princess. What was she implying? Wasn't this mocking the princess for her childlessness? Ying sniffled, covering her swollen cheeks as tears welled up in her eyes. She showed great disrespect to the princess. In my anger, I scolded her a few words, and Lady Zhu attacked me. Madame Zhu was Zhuang Qiong's wet nurse. Having lost his father in childhood and with his mother perpetually unwell, Zhuang Qiong was raised entirely by her and held her in deep reverence. Staring at the plate of date pits, I couldn't deny feeling angry. These petty, underhanded squabbles between women were indeed cliched, yet still infuriating. Ying helped me to a rocking chair under the eaves, and I sent her to fetch Yin Yao. Madame Zhu followed Yin Yao everywhere, never leaving her side. It seemed Zhuang Qiong was truly serious about her. "Your Highness, may you be well." This was my first audience with Yin Yao since her arrival at the estate. I'd expected her to feel uneasy seeing me today, with Zhuang Qiong absent. But to my surprise, she stood tall and proud, clearly not giving me the time of day. She made a show of bowing, but Lady Zhu immediately grabbed her arm, exclaiming, "My dear, you mustn't. You're carrying a child. The general specifically ordered that you be well looked after." This was using Zhuang Qiong to pressure me. I smiled and nodded. Since Lady Yunyao is indisposed, then please, Madame Zhu, do the honors. Madame Zhu's expression shifted slightly. She hastily bent her knee in a perfunctory gesture. But two maidservants immediately stepped forward and forced her to kneel on the ground. When meeting the princess, unless specifically exempted, one must perform the full formal salute. You are a respectable lady yourself, how could you not know even this basic etiquette? Madame Zhu retorted. The princess once graciously exempted me from this duty. Why now? Before she could finish, I cut her off with a cold smile. How could I not recall that? How could the princess not recall? It was when she first married the general. You even vowed to serve me as your own mother. She craned her neck to confront me. All these years, I'd indulged her endlessly because of Zhuang Qiong, and she'd grown utterly arrogant. Are you implying this palace is forgetful? That my word means nothing? Holding my cup of hot tea, I stared at her expressionless. Royal dignity? Today, I would make her witness it firsthand. Madame Zhu froze under my stare. After a moment of shrinking back, she likely assumed I wouldn't dare harm her, and began to speak back defiantly once more. The palace elders who served me were the most adept at reading the situation. Without needing my command, they struck Madame Zhu left and right, only stopping when blood trickled from the corner of her mouth. To dare talk back to the princess during her admonishment, this is gross disrespect. I sipped my tea slowly, seeing Lady Zhu, her hair disheveled, glaring at me and about to speak again. I held back. I turned to look at Yunyao with a smile. She finally understood I wasn't someone to be trifled with. Wringing her hands, tears welling in her eyes, she looked utterly lost. I said, I hear my lady intends to bestow the leftover date pits upon this princess for medicinal soup? That would be treating me like a beggar, forcing a princess to eat her leftovers. She hastily shook her head, casting pitiful glances at me. Princess, I personally peeled every single date pit. Yunyao comes from humble origins and has little to offer you. I only wish to present a remedy to help you restore your health. I never imagined Miss Yingying would misunderstand. Her words flowed like water. I chuckled softly, reaching out to stroke her rounded belly. Startled, she tried to pull away, but someone seized her from behind. Yunyao's sleeve fluttered upward, revealing a pair of black wings tattooed on her forearm. Your heartfelt gesture is appreciated. I shall accept it. You are a blessed soul, and I wish to share in your fortune. Gazing at the sunlit courtyard, I signaled for the items to be brought out and placed within. A table, a Buddha statue, and a tray of jujube pits. The Buddha sat upon the table. The pits arranged before it. This display left Yunyao pale with shock. I've heard that if one who longs for a child prays sincerely, their wish will surely be granted. Today, kneel upon these date pits and pray for me. Wouldn't that be a blessing upon a blessing? What do you say, Lady Yunyao? Yunyao's tears fell like pearls. A sight so pitiable even a celestial maiden would weep, let alone Zhuang Qiong, a grown man. I asked in confusion, why are you weeping, my lady? You claimed your devotion to me was genuine, it seems you were deceiving me. My hand pressed lightly against her belly. A maid beside her shoved her shoulder and scolded. Praying for the princess is your blessing. Show gratitude. Yunyao staggered, bit her lower lip, and stumbled toward the courtyard. Before long, Zhuang Qiong arrived. Having heard the commotion, Yunyao certainly had some tricks up her sleeve. Upon seeing Zhuang Qiong, she didn't immediately burst into tears. Instead, She smiled, and as she smiled, tears began to fall. Good heavens! I couldn't help but exclaim. Zhuang Qiong scooped her up and demanded of me in a deep voice. Princess, might you explain this to your servant? At his command, Lady Zhu began her performance, painting me and Ningying as a wicked mistress and a scheming servant. From start to finish, Zhuang Qiong never once sought my side of the story. For decades, he never cared whether I'd been wronged. If others said I was bad, then I was bad. Is the princess venting her anger on everyone today simply because Yingying was struck? Regardless of right or wrong, Yingying remains a servant. Defiance of superiors demands severe punishment. If she is spared merely because the princess favors her, how can order ever be maintained in this household? His righteous indignation only accentuated his authority. Once, I was captivated by this very sternness. Today, however, it only makes me laugh. May I ask, General, whose authority is being defied here? My Yingying must yield even to the daughter of an official. What noble status does Lady Yinyao possess? What standing does Lady Zhu have to dare touch my people? You tell me. Zhuang Qiong fell silent. I continued with a laugh. If you wish to establish rules, General, you use my people as your test subjects. Have you ever held me in any regard? Whose rules are you setting? The plaque above the gate reads General's Residence. But do you truly believe this place is yours to command? This mansion was bestowed upon me by my father, the Emperor. It is the princess's residence. I spared your pride by hanging your plaque, only for newcomers to mistake it as permission to ride roughshod over me. The air turned bitterly cold. Zhuang Qiong stared at me. Your Highness, you're not the same as before. I smiled. Indeed I'm not. After all, the look in someone's eyes when they want to cut you down can't be hidden. I still feared Zhuang Qiong, but I knew he dared not truly harm me now. The Marquis of Anping and he shared military authority. While the Marquis lived, I could afford to be arrogant for a while longer. This time, I had ultimately won. For Yunyao's sake, Zhuang Qiong knelt before me once more. In that moment, I knew I held his weakness in my grasp. Yet I could not feel joy. In the past, when I challenged him on matters of marital affection, I suffered crushing defeats every time. Now, when I challenge him on matters of sovereign subject loyalty, I can trample his dignity underfoot. It truly proves the saying, deep affection often brings misfortune. The second time I met the wild man, I learned his name was Yuelang. He truly lived up to his name, a real charmer. Seated on the daybed beneath the south window, he beamed like spring sunshine, handing me a rose through the window. This is a gift, though worth little. If the princess favors it, I'd be honored if you bestow any token reward upon me. I snorted derisively, snatching the flower before flinging it straight into his face. How about I reward you with 2 slaps instead? What kind of trash do you bring to ask for a reward? I glared at Yuelang sideways. He grinned slyly, then used the window frame to leap into the room, stirring up a gust of wind that ruffled my hair. Is your Highness in a poor mood today? He reached out to smooth my stray strands, then plopped onto my imperial bed without so much as a greeting, crossing his legs with a casual ease. What use would I have for you if I were in a good mood? He smiled, countering my words. Does seeing me truly bring you joy? Then Yuelang shall visit daily, ensuring the princess is happy every day. His face was like a flower butterfly, yet his eyes were earnest. My heart felt as if struck twice by a beauty's hammer. I dismissed it as jest. But after that day, Yuelang truly came every single day, early or late, never missing a visit. My life gradually filled with his presence. This day, however, the moon lad didn't appear until noon. Staring at the ink, brushes, paper, and inkstone laid out in the courtyard, I ordered Ying, send someone to guard the gate. If he shows up, beat him with sticks and tell him never to come again. Climbing walls and leaping through windows like a thief, what does he take me for? What does he take this princess's residence for? My anger grew with each word, my palms slapping the table with a sharp crack. The jingling of the silver and jewels scattered across my head followed, truly exhausting me to death. Yueling always appears and vanishes like a ghost. Yesterday, he made a rare promise to come paint my portrait this morning. I got up early to dress up, but he still hasn't shown up by this hour. A princess being stood up, it's hard not to speak harshly. Ying went out smiling to intercept him, but returned moments later, beaming and shouting, "That little minx is finished." It turned out that during the morning court session, the Marquis of Confronting had recommended a successor for the commander of the Imperial Guards, some young man whose name I'd never even heard before. But I knew, and Zhuang Qiong knew, that this man was Zhou Yuanshua's confidant. When Zhuang Qiong returned home, he flew into a rage. Yet Yun Yao, oblivious to the danger, dared to approach him. Using the child's clinginess as an excuse, she tried to coax some attention out of him, only to be severely reprimanded. I'll admit she's skilled at seducing men, but she underestimated Zhuang Qiong's nature. He'd never tolerate a woman becoming his stumbling block. And lately, Yun Yao had clearly wasted too much of his time. Hearing this news didn't bring me any satisfaction. My own lover had vanished without a trace. I had no spare energy for gossiping about others. For the first time in my life, I entertained the notion of keeping a secret lover. I even pondered whether to have a pair of golden shackles made, to chain Yueling forever within the square courtyard. Without Yueling by my side that night, I couldn't sleep soundly. In my drowsy haze, I suddenly felt a chill breeze sweep into the room. The window had been opened. I called out, "Yueling." He always leapt through the window to enter. Doors were nothing but decorations. The more I thought about it, the angrier I grew. Closing my eyes, I muttered, "Tomorrow I'll have the south window sealed shut. If you dare stand me up again, don't ever come back." Someone entered the inner chamber, yet no response came. He stood before my bed, cold as ice. The stillness of the room slowly reawakened my senses. This man wants to kill me. I could feel his murderous intent as he scanned me. My hair stood on end. He lingered without moving, and I couldn't tell what he was studying. After a long, tense standoff, I slowly opened my eyes. My head was filled with question marks as I stared wide-eyed at Yueling. "Are you crazy?" I snapped at him. "If you're here, just be here. Why all the ghostly nonsense?" He chuckled softly. "My princess is quite bold. I see I haven't frightened you." I grabbed a pillow and hurled it at him. "Death is nothing new to me. If I die, I'll just eat another meal. Pfft. No big deal." Just then, I made a decision. As he spoke, he slipped off his shoes and climbed onto the bed, squeezing into my blankets and claiming half my pillow like a big dog wagging its tail. He wrapped his arms tightly around me, pulling me close. "What is it?" I asked lazily. He whispered in my ear with a smile. "I can't tell you." If he didn't want to say, I wouldn't press him, just as I'd pretended not to see the fleeting murderous intent that had flashed across his face earlier. My life is as fleeting as this dew-like romance. I don't want to pry and become a nuisance. After all, who knows if we'll meet again in the next life? Moonboy tossed all the bedding I'd prepared for him onto the floor. I sighed. "You always come to snatch my blanket. Don't you find it cramped?" He replied, "This is perfect. You can't escape." As he spoke, his hands began to roam restlessly along my waist. I froze, blurting out, "I haven't taken my medicine." Medicine? Awkwardness hung heavy in the air. After a long silence, Yueling said, "So that's why you go wild every time, you're just playing hard to get with me." He teased me, putting on such a show, Could it be you're afraid of embarrassing yourself in front of me? Only then did I realize, it's not just men who hate being called inadequate, I hate it too. I stubbornly retorted, well, you're wrong. It wasn't to make me look good, it was to make you look good. You beast. Before I could finish, he grumbled and flipped over to pounce on me. Yuelang. I'm sorry, Grandpa. Please spare me. He wouldn't listen. Covering my mouth. Who's Yuelang? Princess. You're begging the wrong person. I'm a beast now, don't know anything about grandpas or grandmas. Yuelang and I were still playfully wrestling when suddenly Yingying called out, General. Then my door was kicked open. I flung back the covers, pulled on a robe, and ordered Yuelang to stay put. Stepping around the screen, I saw Zhuang Qiong standing outside the door, sword in hand, eyes blazing. Who's inside? His eyes were so red they seemed ready to bleed. I laughed. Is that any of your concern? Wielding swords before this palace, does the general still understand the distinction between sovereign and subject? Between honor and humility? He retorted. I know the difference between sovereign and subject. Between honor and humility. But does the princess know the difference between a woman's duty and decency? Zhuang Qiong was indirectly calling me shameless. I flung a small clay bottle at him. He didn't even flinch. And it smashed into his temple, gouging out a bloody hole. In the past, even a scratch on his finger would make me cry like a fool. But now, as blood trickled down his brow, I felt nothing but satisfaction. Thinking to myself, serves him right. I stepped beside Zhuang Qiong, pressing my index finger firmly against the blade of his sword, forcing it down. If the general values decorum, I declared, then let me tell you, the dignity of the imperial family is the dignity of the realm. My dignity is your dignity. The fire in his eyes flickered and dimmed. For a moment, I was lost in thought. To an outsider, his expression might have suggested a profound, unspoken devotion to me. Is the princess resorting to such desperate measures to retaliate against me because I brought Yin Yao back to the mansion? I find it laughable. Even without Yin Yao, there would be Feng Yao, Yu Yao, Shui Yao. Zhuang Qiong gritted his teeth. I know nothing of such storms. Of course he wouldn't know them in this lifetime. But I remember them all too well. I curved my lips slightly and waved my hand. It doesn't matter. I care not. Zhuang Qiong suddenly gave a cold laugh and countered. You care not? His gaze swept toward the inner chambers, then fixed on my thin robe. His expression shifted several times before he ceased his questioning. Grabbing his long sword, he turned and left. Only then did I notice Lady Zhu had followed. Once Zhuang Qiong was out of earshot, she beamed, a joyous announcement for the princess. Lady Yin Yao has borne the general a son. This old servant owes the princess's reckless actions. They saved my foolish Qiong from losing his mind. Her face lit up with the satisfaction of surviving a crisis. She lifted her chin and hurried after Zhuang Qiong. 3 days later, the emperor personally conferred upon Yin Yao the title of consort, a position equal to the prince consort. It was said Zhuang Qiong had specifically petitioned for her. Consort? He intended to crush me completely beneath his feet. I too had sent a letter to the palace, pleading with my mother to intervene. The plan to spare the child while banishing Yin Yao was one I'd long devised. Expelling her from the capital would preserve my dignity without harming the innocent. But that letter vanished without a trace. I knew I had become the sacrificial pawn in the imperial family's bid to curry favor with Zhuang Qiong. Once the imperial decree was issued, my days of nobility were over. A princess, once held in high esteem, now reduced to sharing a husband with another, I was worse than worthless mud. The princess's mansion truly became the general's mansion. The so-called princess was nothing but a hollow figure. By July, the heat was scorching. Clad in sheer gauze, I lay beneath the south window, listlessly tugging at my collar and fanning myself with a round fan to draw cool air beneath my garments. The candied fruit on the table had melted into a pool of lukewarm liquid. After 2 spoonfuls, I set the spoon aside. Lifting my gaze, I found Zhuang Qiong standing in the doorway. His eyes fixed precisely on my pale, exposed chest. I pulled my waist-length skirt up, averting his gaze as I sat up. Whether it was my imagination or not, Zhuang Qiong's eyes lately held a raw, unmasked desire whenever he looked at me. How can it be this hot? He rarely showed concern for me. Ying complained impatiently, "You'd better ask Lady Yunyao about that. She's got her hands on all the supplies in the mansion now. All the good stuff gets sent straight to her courtyard. How dare she skimp on the princess's provisions?" Ying, the general has just welcomed a precious son. Naturally, everything in the mansion must be prioritized for the young master first. Stop talking nonsense. Go fetch some ice to cool the general down. Fearing Zhuang Qiong would punish Ying, I had to interrupt her. But the girl showed no gratitude, flinging her arms angrily as she stormed off. Didn't she realize that even her mistress, me, was now as helpless as a clay Buddha crossing the river? What could I possibly offer to protect her? She was reckless, charging straight into danger. Ying speaks her mind, she's just indignant for your highness. If you've been wronged, why not say a word to me? Now Zhuang Qiong's temper's improved. He's become far more patient with those around me, slaps me twice, then rubs my face 3 times. Seeing my silence, he lowered his eyes and smiled softly, adding, "This triumphant return to court has unfolded exactly as I anticipated. Every person, every matter. Yet you've become increasingly baffling. When did you learn to bend and stretch like this?" Bend and stretch? Zhuang Qiong's words amused me. In my endless cycle of lives, my dignity and sincerity have been trampled underfoot countless times. The current situation? It's hardly the worst. What flexibility! I merely go with the flow, acting freely when favored, sheathing my edge when outmaneuvered. Truth be told, I'm just a coward afraid of death. Yet even the spineless princess has someone willing to obey her every command. That fool Yuelang, at my slightest word, he'd scale walls and tread rooftops daily just to see me. As if he weren't afraid of falling to his death. My laughter grew restless and distracted. Zhuang Qiong saw it and could no longer feign kindness. Suddenly, his words struck me like a bolt from the blue. Kill him. He meant Yuelang. Send Yunyao away, and the princess's mansion will remain yours. I'll still be your prince consort. Everything that happened before, let's pretend it never occurred. I couldn't fathom how such heartless, shameless words could pass his lips. I glared at him, biting my lower lip until I finally snapped. If you dare lay a finger on him, I'll drag you down with me to the grave, even if it means my own death. Though my influence has waned, I still have my doting grandfather, the Marquis of Anping, who currently holds equal sway with Zhuang Qiong. My grandfather may not meddle in the affairs of the inner quarters, but if harm comes to me, he will not stand idly by. Zhuang Qiong seemed unprepared for my immediate defiance. After a long, tense stare, he sneered, "You slimy little thing, you don't even find it disgusting to lie in his arms." He rarely lost his composure to curse, but he quickly regained his poise, reverting to that arrogant, cold demeanor. In a few days, the mansion will host distinguished guests who favor roses. Your Highness's rose garden is the perfect venue for welcoming them. That day, Yun Yao will accompany me as your attendant. Your Highness should leave the mansion to avoid being seen by others. It would be difficult for me to explain. Leave the mansion. He was telling me that in this world, my dignity depended entirely on him. I must admit, when it came to suppressing me, Zhuang Qiong always had a knack for it. The day before the banquet, Yuelang suddenly asked me, "Tomorrow is the Festival of Coolness. Is your Highness free? I hear the city's music troupe is holding a boat dance competition. If your highness is interested, perhaps you could accompany me to watch. I had been worrying about where to hide tomorrow. And Yuelong's offer came like a timely gift. He must know how difficult my days in the mansion have become. Yet he never treats me with disdain because of my fallen status. Instead, he tenderly protects what remains of my shattered self-respect. I dare not let myself fall for him. Yet how can I not? I turned away, feigning laziness. I'm not going, I said. In this sweltering heat? Do you want to exhaust me to death? He hooked my little finger with a smile, pleading, please, princess, be kind to Yuelang. Come join the festivities with me. His cool touch against my sticky skin made my face flush. I pushed him away, feigning resignation. Fine. I'll go. But in this heat? Stop pestering me. The next morning before leaving, Zhuang Qiong sought me out again. Seeing my plain attire and readiness to depart, his face darkened instantly. All those sweet words you used to coax me, why not a single one now? He wanted me to yield to him. Yet I couldn't fathom his true intentions. Seeing that the hour I'd agreed upon with Yueling was approaching, I had no time to deal with Zhuang Qiong. I pulled my veil over my face and started to leave. But he grabbed me by the arm and said, if you just beg me, you can stay in the mansion and accompany me to the night banquet. His grip was so tight it hurt. I asked him, Zhuang Qiong, do you wish you could kill me right now? I didn't mean that. He stammered. Something rare for him. I wanted to ask him, then why did every word he spoke make me feel like death was preferable to life? The cooling festival comes every year, but boat dance competitions are a rare sight. After sunset, rows of glass lanterns hung from the riverside stone railings. Several painted boats drifted on the water. Their dancers, beautiful women with willow-slender waists, swaying like reeds. It was truly a sight to behold. But I turned and pushed my way out of the crowd. Yuelang swiftly followed, wrapping his arms around me to shield me. Why stop watching? Not pretty? His voice brushed my ear as I puffed out my cheeks and turned away. Not pretty. Not as pretty as me. I wasn't joking. Yet he chuckled endlessly. His laughter soothed me. I wiped the cold sweat from my forehead, afraid he'd see my panic. Earlier, I thought I spotted Zhuang Qiong in the crowd. He stared at me with icy eyes. Yet it felt like he was looking at Yuelang, his whole body radiating murderous intent. As if he wanted to eliminate him immediately. But right now, he should be entertaining important guests at the mansion. How could he possibly be here? Probably just my eyes playing tricks on me? Escaping the crowd, I jabbed my elbow into Yuelong's stomach and teased in a sarcastic tone, what? Do you think this palace isn't as good as them? No wonder you couldn't take your eyes off them earlier, you were really into it. I pouted, expecting Yueling to respond with his usual smooth talk. But instead, he broke his usual pattern and fell into a smiling silence. He led me to the riverbank's edge, where we sat side by side on two stone benches. The evening breeze carried a chill, making me sneeze several times. Yueling pulled me close into his embrace. In that moment, we looked like any ordinary married couple. I wrapped my arms tightly around his waist, afraid this fleeting happiness might slip away. Yueling, please don't come to the princess's residence anymore. I'll visit you once a month instead. Is that all right? He shook his head, stubbornly refusing me. No. Once a month isn't enough. What's wrong? Has the princess grown tired of me? Of course not. I protested urgently, gathering my courage to speak frankly. Yueling, you're so intelligent, you must know my life hangs by a thread now. If you get entangled with me, you won't end well. Truthfully, I fear not death myself, but I dread dragging you down with me. If that madman Zhuang Qiong ever draws a blade against you, what good would my desperate struggle do? You'd be gone. And in the next life. What if I never find you again? Yuelang, who never spoke of his own affairs, suddenly spoke after hearing my despairing words. My birth mother was a dancer. She gave birth to me and was thrown into a well and drowned immediately afterward. I fell silent as he continued. Right after I was born, they sent me to the First Lady's quarters. She named me Goer, chained me to a shack, and made me perform monkey tricks for her own son. One day, he tore a huge hole in the roof of my shack. A few nights later, a downpour soaked me like a drowned rat. The next day, I was feverish and couldn't crawl. Yet he still beat me. That day, cold and in agony, I vomited blood twice. Before losing consciousness, I thought dying might be better. Life was nothing but suffering. Yet another part of me vowed that if I survived, I would transform myself completely. Yuelang peeled back his own scars, using his bloody past to comfort me. His face showed no emotion, no love, hate, sorrow, or joy. Yet the calmer he seemed, the more my heart twisted in agony. I covered his mouth with my hand, silencing him. Yuelang, I understand what you mean. I wouldn't be so foolish as to take my own life. I'll find a way to deal with Zhuangqiong too. Even though my death is predestined, my desperate struggle against fate is nothing more than a grasshopper trying to stop a cart. Yuelang clasped my hand in his own. The thick calluses on his palm rubbed against mine, causing a strange mix of pain and tingling. He continued, Your Highness, do you know how I finally escaped my cage? I shook my head. He stared straight at me, his icy eyes holding a tenderness only I could understand. My escape had little to do with my own strength. Back then, I was too weak. Even struggling only earned me another beating. My survival depended entirely on the intrigues within my father's household. Another shrewd lady outmaneuvered the chief consort, granting me a reprieve. She was my benefactor. Without her, even with the sharpest wit, how could I have scaled those towering walls? Some things are simply beyond the power of one person to change. For a moment, I was dazed. I'd thought Yuelang was encouraging me to fight for hope, to battle heaven and man. But instead, he told me that some things, some people, you just can't overcome. Then who should I turn to? What princess? Now I'm nothing but a beggar with no place to call home. Who could I possibly lean on? I murmured to myself, unaware when my tears had begun to fall. Yuelang cupped my face, wiping away my tears. Suddenly, he smiled, a smile so radiant it truly made the moon pale in comparison. Let me be your benefactor, princess. Shall we? Yuelang had slain the prince consort for his highness. I threw myself into his arms, burying my face against his chest and shaking like a rattle. His voice turned noticeably colder as he asked, Does the princess regret his death? Startled, I shook my head and laughed, scolding him playfully. Silly Yuelang, meeting you in this lifetime is truly the best thing ever. I know his skills are formidable, but how could I bear him risking his life for me? Zhuangqiong is the destined protagonist. If heaven won't let him die, he won't die. Yuelang. I choked out his name, tears welling in my throat. Let's elope. Will you? Ying and I met under the willow tree 3 blocks ahead of the princess's mansion. After walking a few steps, she asked, What happened? Why does your highness look so gloomy? I gave a bitter smile, unsure how to answer. When I wept like a rain-soaked pear blossom, begging Yuelang to elope with me, he merely stroked my head with his usual calm and said he'd think about it. Heaven only knows how my burning heart grew half cold in that moment. I was foolish enough to believe his promise to kill Zhuangqiong for me was genuine. So I blurted out a challenge without thinking. Eloping with a disgraced princess. Declaring war on a general whose power was as vast as the sea, Yuelang was just an ordinary man. He'd only been sweet-talking me to placate me. How could I have taken him seriously? Of course he'd refuse me. Refuse me politely. Has the banquet at the mansion ended yet? I rubbed my dry, sore eyes. Changing the subject. I heard the honored guest failed to show today. The prince consort waited for hours and is nearly beside himself with rage. My feet faltered. Cold sweat breaking out instantly. Had I not been seeing things? Had Zhuang Qiong truly appeared by the Siwa River? Yuelang. Could he be in danger? No. I reassured myself. If Ying was right, Zhuang Qiong was too busy fuming to even think of leaving the mansion. Clinging to this sliver of hope, I walked back to my courtyard in silence, lost in my thoughts. I didn't notice that Fengqi pavilion, usually aglow with lights, was completely dark tonight. Like a soulless shell, I stepped inside, oblivious to the figure seated on the chair. Did your highness enjoy the entertainment? Zhuang Qiong's single sentence nearly shattered my courage. Noticing my twisted ankle, he chuckled. Why so frightened? Princess? Have you done something to make your conscience ache? His face remained hidden in the darkness. I couldn't see his expression, only hearing his laughter, cold and hard. Zhuang Qiong was a master of disguise. He despised me, yet never let me glimpse his true feelings until my final moments, when he would bare his teeth, grinding them together as if he wished to tear me apart and boil me into porridge. A sudden sense of dread gripped me, my tongue trembling so violently I couldn't utter a single word for a long while. Zhuang Qiong rose and approached me. I wanted to flee, but my feet felt nailed to the floor. His index finger traced my brow, my eyes, my lips, then lifted my chin, forcing me to meet his gaze. Princess, have you heard of Zhou Yuanxuo? I swallowed hard, summoning my courage to reply, that madman? Who hasn't heard of him? He murdered his mother, killed his father, slaughtered his brothers. Half the palace perished by Zhou Yuanxuo's blade. He's an emotionless devil, striking terror into all who hear his name. Madman? Zhuang Qiong scoffed. If he's mad, then what of the prince entangled with him? A fool? No. The princess is clever. I am the fool she plays with like a puppet. He shoved me hard onto the bed, his grip nearly crushing my jaw. Pain made tears spill from my eyes. My mouth clamped shut, I couldn't even protest. I found it strange. He continued. That filthy male prostitute was beaten to death long ago. Yet your loyal servant never sought a new lover for you. So who is this rotten fish and rotten shrimp who crawled onto the princess's imperial bed? Zhou Yuanxuo. Humph. He repeatedly broke his appointments with me, yet found time to visit your chambers. He released his grip, staring at me blankly for a moment before continuing, why? Princess. Would you throw yourself at the prince of an enemy nation? This servant cannot fathom it. I implore you to enlighten me. Stars danced before my eyes. My ears buzzed, I couldn't make heads or tails of Zhuang Qiong's rambling nonsense. My mind was a jumbled mess. And my temper flared. I snapped. Zhuang Qiong, who I throw myself at is none of your business. You're allowed to have women on both arms. But I can't have a confidant. What about Zhou Yuanxuo? What does my beloved have to do with that madman Zhou Yuanxuo? Today I hosted a grand banquet. Who did the princess think I was inviting? The so-called honored guest was none other than that madman. Yet he betrayed me again, not even showing his face. I'd long suspected this distinguished guest was none other than Zhou Yuanxuo. According to the novel's plot, after command of the imperial guards fell into Zhou Yuanxuo's confidant's hands, Zhuang Qiong finally realized this man was too formidable to handle. So he offered 3 cities as leverage, coaxing him into joining forces to plot a grand rebellion. Tonight's banquet was specially arranged by Zhuang Qiong for Zhou Yuanxuo. Yet he didn't show up. He turned down 3 cities and instead took his wife to enjoy the cooling festival. I dispatched a squad to track Zhou Yuanxuo's whereabouts. The scouts returned reporting that my princess was admiring dances by the riverbank and conversing under the moonlight with him. Your Highness. When you wept and begged him to carry you far away. Did you know how agonizing it was for me to hear? I detest his unyielding slander against Yuelang. And I detest even more his sudden, contrived persona of deep affection. Zhuang Qiong. You ask what I want to do? I should be asking you what you intend. You feign false affection. Yet your heart likely yearns to see me torn to pieces. Now that I'm but a cripple. If you want my life, take it. Why bother spouting nonsense about Yuelang being Zhou Yuan Shua? So, the princess was deceived by him too? Never mind. It's not crucial. Zhuang Qiong snorted with a mocking laugh, suddenly yanking me by the collar toward him. The princess asks, well, what does this servant desire? Even I am baffled. Your Highness is ever so wise, perhaps you could ponder what it is this servant truly desires. Staring into his vicious eyes, my head grew hot. I yanked out my golden hairpin and plunged it into his chest. I don't care what you want. Stop acting like a madman in front of me and get the hell out of my room. No sooner had the words left my mouth than I heard a heavy thud as someone knelt to the ground. Peering over, I saw Ying pinned down, her shoulders pressed to the floor, hands forced flat against the ground. A guard held a short blade. As I screamed no, in terror, his hand swung, and with a swift chop, he severed one of Ying's fingers. Zhuang Qiong looked at the golden hairpin in his chest, then at me. His gaze seemed to sneer, is this all you've got? He pulled out the hairpin and tossed it aside. Barely a drop of blood stained his chest. From this moment on, until the princess helps her servant uncover what he truly desires, Ying will lose a finger every cup of tea's time. Princess. You'd better hurry. Ying's wails tore at my heart. I wept with her, my eyes burning so fiercely I feared all the tears I'd shed in my lifetime would dry up today. I tugged at General Zhuang Qiong's sleeve, pleading, what exactly do you want? What are you trying to do? Please don't hurt Ying. General. I beg you. He looked down at me with a smile. When the princess is like this, with her heart and eyes filled only with me, my heart feels utterly satisfied. I knew what he wanted. He craved this body I once desperately tried to offer him. The one that left him utterly unmoved. And the heart beneath it, long since numb. But now, I refuse to give him this body or this heart. For within this heart, another has taken root. I once believed I'd stop at nothing to survive. But now I see I've died 7 lifetimes in vain, gaining nothing. I used to think I was merely clinging to life. But now I know this wretched existence, reborn time and again, is nothing but a begging for scraps of affection. Given my current situation, submitting to Zhuang Qiong feels worse than death itself. Opening my eyes would surely mean another cycle of rebirth. But there's Ying, my foolish Ying. Through dozens of lifetimes, only Ying has ever treated me with genuine heart. Each time I faced death, my body was covered in wounds. Each time, she clung to me desperately, begging me not to leave her alone. Knowing it was futile, she still lunged madly at Zhuang Qiong to avenge me. Until my eyes closed in helplessness. She always fought for me with every ounce of strength, weeping until her tears ran dry. I couldn't bear to let her suffer with me time and again. I must live. I have to survive. Kneeling at Zhuang Qiong's feet, I reached to loosen his belt. When I spoke again, my voice trembled, altered beyond recognition. General, please treat me gently. He didn't seem to mind my tear-streaked, disheveled appearance. Pinching my cheek, he asked, the princess will forget Zhou Yuan Shua, won't she? I blinked obediently, tears dripping onto Zhuang Qiong's hand. He broke the princess's heart. This minister will seek justice for you. He smiled with satisfaction, then leaned in to press himself against me. After that day, I became nothing more than a puppet in Zhuang Qiong's palm. Nightmares haunted me daily, and my health deteriorated with each passing day. Ying brought me a bowl of medicinal soup. Seeing my cold sweat, she urged, "Princess, now that the prince consort stays by your side daily, it shows he's truly repented. Give him another chance. Let bygones be bygones." The bygones Ying spoke of referred to Yuelang. Since that day, he had never sought me out again. Perhaps Zhuang Qiong was right, Yuelang is Zhou Yuan Shuo. He drew near me only to pry information about my maternal grandfather, the Marquis of Anping, his preferences and vulnerabilities, to bolster his bid for command of the Imperial Guard. Once his goal achieved, I'd become a disposable pawn. To have ever dreamed of fleeing with him. Ha! What utter folly! I took the medicine bowl from Ying's hands, drew her hand close, and stroked the stump of her severed finger. With a faint smile, I asked her, "The prince consort severed one of your fingers. Do you not hate him?" Her eyes reddened, and she bit her lip, shaking her head. "I do not hate him," she said. "As long as the princess and the prince consort are well. As long as the princess is well. This servant has only suffered a little injury. What is there to fear?" But it was no mere injury. A girl with a disability, what family would ever want her? She sacrificed a good marriage for me. Yet she spoke of it as if she'd lost nothing more than a sesame seed. Holding her hand, I admonished her, and myself, "Fool. Never trust love too easily. Love is the most unreliable thing of all. To survive in this world, one can only rely on oneself." After lunch, I chose a peach-colored gauze robe. Wearing it, I resembled a sickly shishir. This hour was reserved for Zhuang Qiong and Yinyao's mother-son bonding time. Fully prepared, I went to stir up trouble. Both men startled at my arrival. Zhuang Qiong left Yinyao and her son to approach me, scrutinizing me from head to toe before fixing his gaze on my slightly exposed shoulder. His face hardened as he demanded, "Dressed like this? For whom?" I silently cursed him a hypocrite. His eyes were practically glued to me. Yet he had the nerve to ask who I was trying to impress. Though my thoughts raced, I kept my composure outwardly. Dodging his question, I replied, "My timing is poor. The general and lady are busy. I'll return later to see the child." As I turned to leave, Zhuang Qiong grabbed my arm. "You're his mother," he said. "There's no such thing as an opportune when visiting him." Running his fingers over my cool fingertips, he added sternly, "You've been unwell lately. Take better care of yourself. If you wear yourself out, no one will grieve for you." Yunyao's face darkened. After carrying this child for 10 months, nearly dying in childbirth, only to have it call someone else mother, how agonizing that must be. She surely understood, though Zhuang Qiong kept her in the mansion. He still held prejudice against her lowly origins. What good was being a secondary wife? Without her maternal clan's support or her husband's affection, she remained nothing but a pile of mud. I smiled at her, and she gritted her teeth at me. Ignoring her provocation, I turned to Zhuang Qiong, speaking of which, I have a matter to discuss with the general. Since we meet here, may I ask, would it be acceptable for me to choose a date to enter the palace? His face darkened instantly. "Princess, have I not said that in the future? You can rely only on me? Why can't you sever ties with others?" Ever since the Festival of Coolness, General Zhuang Qiong had developed an extreme desire to control me. I smiled at him and replied, "Unable to sever ties? General, you truly misunderstand me. What ties could I possibly have with parents who sold their daughter for glory? Since you plan to rebel, I'll ask my mother to replace the commander of the Imperial Guards with your man. That way, Zhou Yuanshua won't get in the way." Zhuang Qiong hadn't anticipated such bluntness. In an instant, he concealed his murderous intent and asked, What nonsense are you spouting? Princess? I don't understand. There's no need for the general to feign ignorance. There are no outsiders here. As I spoke, my gaze swept toward Yun Yao. Catching my look, he turned and instructed her, "You may retire to your quarters. The princess and I wish to observe the child. Return later." Yun Yao's eyes instantly filled with tears. She withdrew obediently. Yet I knew all too well the depth of her hurt and humiliation in that moment. The general's heart is truly cold. How heartbroken she must be. Being sent away like this. A woman's resentment can breed betrayal. Zhuang Qiong's hand unconsciously brushed against my neck. He murmured distractedly, "As long as you stay obedient. I can't control the others." Enough. He tightened his grip slightly and asked. The princess would never betray her subject. Correct? Suffocation crept over me. I smiled and patted his hand, reminding him, "You're hurting me. Because of me." Zhuang Qiong and Zhou Yuanshua became bitter enemies. Unable to secure the Imperial Guard, his rebellion plans were forced to a halt. I volunteered to help Zhuang Qiong secure the position of Imperial Guard commander. He couldn't fathom why I'd side with him, after all. My parents sat upon the dragon throne. He refused to believe I could be so heartless. Heartless? It was they who abandoned me first. The general will kill me sooner or later. The plot is set. I'm destined to die by Zhuang Qiong's hand. I often sense his conflicting emotions toward me, a desire to kill me, yet a reluctance to do so. I have no choice but to take a gamble. Today I aid the general. When the day comes, I beg only that he spare my life. In the end, Zhuang Qiong agreed to my request. I suppose he was truly at his wit's end, utterly helpless against Zhou Yuanshua. So he let me try this desperate measure. On the day I entered the palace, he ordered Ying to remain in the mansion and assigned 2 female attendants to me. They were ostensibly there to care for me. But in truth, they were to monitor my every move. Come to think of it, the last time I saw the empress was, well, the last time. Well, truth be told, our encounters were few and far between. Relying on emotional appeal was hardly feasible. Fortunately, through my cycles of reincarnation, I'd pieced together fragments of her nature from scattered, non-overlapping memories. She wasn't foolish, feared death, craved luxury and pleasure, a woman who responded to force, not kindness. Incense burned within the opulent palace, the air thick with decadent indulgence, showing no sign of the dynasty's impending collapse. The empress sipped her tea leisurely, lavishing praise upon me. "I hear you've been getting along rather well with the general lately?" Just as it should be. A woman who can't keep a man is utterly useless. Women within the palace walls, no matter how exalted their status, ultimately revolve around one thing, vying for favor. Yet I did not look down on them, I envied them. At least their struggles were for a better life, while mine was merely for survival, with an uncertain future. If Mother wishes to win over General Zhuang, she should hand the position of Imperial Guard Commander to Li Kuo. I cut straight to the point. Li Kuo is Zhuang Qiong's confidant. Before I left, he repeatedly urged me that Li Kuo must be the choice for Imperial Guard Commander. Now the Emperor is old, kept in the palace merely as a good luck charm. The real decisions of state are made by the Empress. She paused, her eyebrows lifting imperceptibly as she laughed it off. What nonsense are you spouting? Silly girl? The current commander was handpicked by your grandfather. Could there be any reason for the general to distrust him? Zhuang Qiong's achievements overshadow the sovereign, and his intentions are impure. As the final line of defense safeguarding the imperial family, the Imperial Guard cannot be entrusted to him lightly. Mother, are you aware that the commander who now roams the palace freely is a lackey of Zhou Yuanshua, the third prince of the enemy nation? At these words, the Empress's expression abruptly darkened. How could that be? He was handpicked by your grandfather. Utter nonsense. I curved my lips slightly, signaling the lady-in-waiting behind me to present a thick stack of envelopes. The Marquis of Onping is old now, miscalculations are inevitable. Mother, do not fret. Look at these first. The general went to great lengths to uncover Zhou Yuanshuo's misdeeds. How dare you? The empress snatched the envelopes and flung them to the floor, pointing an accusing finger at me. The Marquis of Onping. The Marquis of Onping. You're implying your own grandfather is senile. Who gave you the audacity? Mother trusts grandfather. And I understand that. But I am also your bloodkin. Your guardedness toward me truly breaks my heart. I stuffed a jujube cake into my mouth, mumbling as I pierced the thin veil of tension no one dared break. Still, I understand. Everyone says the general will rebel sooner or later. So your majesty naturally fears him. The room fell into an eerie silence. I waited patiently until the Empress Dowager's face darkened. Princess, your tongue has no restraint, she said. This time, I will spare you. But if there is a next time, do not blame me for disregarding our mother-daughter bond. She waved me out. Her eyes narrowed in a gloomy glare, as if even one more glance at me annoyed her. I touched my belly and whispered softly, Mother, I am carrying the general's child. She remained motionless, waiting for me to continue. The general is a man of deep loyalty and honor. Mother, you should know this better than anyone. Were it not for the 2 lives we owe his parents, his unwavering loyalty would never have led him to seek to overthrow you. I glanced at the ladies-in-waiting behind me, seeing shock etched on both their faces. Before continuing, rebellion was inevitable for the general. But I bear his child, he said that if father is willing to name the child in my womb as crown prince, he will spare the bloodshed and grant you both a peaceful death in your high positions. The empress's expression remained composed, yet sparks danced in her eyes. I stepped before her, continuing my web of lies. Your humble son believes this is a fair bargain. It avoids strife and upheaval. Yet imperial power remains within the family. After all, the blood flowing through my child's veins is royal blood too. Mother, what say you? The empress finally erupted from her silence. She picked up a tea bowl and hurled it at me, her voice cracking with fury. You wretch! You accursed creature! Absurd! She nearly tumbled from the imperial couch. I rushed to steady her, gripping her forearm tightly. Her hand instinctively found its way into my sleeve pocket. Are absurdities scarce in this world? Is it not absurd that the prince consort in the princess's mansion dares to take a secondary wife? A flicker of guilt crossed the empress's eyes. I spoke earnestly, Mother. If the general raises his army, who in the palace do you think could stand against him? The imperial guards are not entrusted to our own people, but instead to the prince of an enemy nation. Does that truly ease your mind? Truthfully, wouldn't it suffice for you and father to live out your days in peace? Why concern yourself so deeply with the affairs of future generations? You must consider this carefully. If you're resolved, then hand the command of the imperial guard to Li Kwa. Let the general see our sincerity. As soon as I stepped out of the empress's chambers, 2 ladies-in-waiting hurried to support me. One of them exclaimed, Princess, are you with child? Such momentous news, why haven't you mentioned it? I waved her away. Pregnant? Impossible. That was merely a pretext I devised on the spot to persuade the empress. Gazing at the fading glow on the horizon, the earlier excitement waned, leaving only a sense of exhilaration. Rarely do I return home. My ladies, you've worked hard. Accompany me for a stroll. We strolled back to Linglong Hall, my former residence, now uninhabited. It felt eerily quiet, like a haunted house. Along the way, I encountered many palace servants who swiftly spread the news of my wandering through the palace. I casually grabbed a young maid and ordered her to bring me a pot of floral tea. I sat in the courtyard sipping it for half an hour until the lady-in-waiting behind me reminded me, "Princess, if you don't return soon, the general will worry." Ah, I truly didn't want to leave. Those were my honest words. In my life, already engulfed in smoke and fire, how rare it was to find even a moment of peace. Reluctantly, I rose to leave. But the moment I stepped through the palace gates, my path was blocked. The man before me demanded, "Princess, why did you not keep your appointment on the 19th day of the 7th month? The 19th day of the 7th month, the third day after the Festival of Coolness." My mind was filled with question marks. The lady-in-waiting behind me whispered, "This is the current commander of the Imperial Guard." Oh, so he's one of Zhou Yuanshua's men. I didn't want to engage with him. With a dark expression, I turned to leave, but he drew his sword and blocked my path. The cold gleam of the blade was like Yuelong's sharp eyes. "My lord requests an answer. Princess, why did you not keep your appointment on the 19th day of the 7th month?" The my lord he referred to must be Zhou Yuanshua. I don't know Zhou Yuanshua. I only know Yuelang. But it turns out, Yuelang really is Zhou Yuanshua. I gave a cold laugh. What 19th of July? What meeting? When did your lord ever make an appointment with me? This is utterly nonsensical. After returning to the mansion, the two ladies-in-waiting parted ways with me. I headed straight for the study, likely to report today's events to Zhuangqiong. During my supper, Zhuangqiong rushed in and blurted out, "Your Highness is with child?" My hand trembled, sending the black beans I held with my chopsticks tumbling onto the floor. Seeing him panting slightly, I burst out laughing and countered, "General, would you prefer this princess to nod or shake her head?" It was odd, he knew it was false news. Yet why was he so flustered? After all those years he'd coaxed me to drink bowl after bowl of contraceptive concoctions, claiming they were tonics. Didn't he know whether I could conceive? Zhuangqiong opened his mouth but said nothing. He sat beside me, his expression calm as he replied, "If I could have a child with your highness, I would naturally cherish it." Cherish it? I couldn't care less. As a mother, I can barely protect myself. How could I bring him into such suffering? Those words were merely lies spun to deceive my mother. He must have thought I was feeling despondent, for he patted the back of my head and coaxed me like a child. His voice deep and soothing, "Your Highness speaks nonsense again. As long as you remain loyal to me, how could I ever harm you? Take care of your health, and one day we shall have children of our own." I gave no clear answer, only reminded him, "I have no desire for children. But if Li Kuo truly takes the post of Imperial Guard commander, I shall be the foremost contributor. When that time comes, I hope the general will remember me kindly." Days later, news reached the court. The newly appointed commander hadn't even warmed his seat before being replaced by Li Kuo. The princess's residence bustled with unprecedented activity. Each day brought a stream of opportunists scrambling to curry favor with Zhuangqiong. After all, the winds of change might blow, and the wise always sought a fallback. Joyful events lift the spirits, and Zhuangqiong was no exception. His smile grew more frequent these days, and he treated me with greater tenderness than before. One day, on a sudden whim, he insisted on taking me to see the base where he was recruiting soldiers and gathering supplies. I was so surprised I couldn't speak. He explained, "Didn't your highness say you wanted your servant to remember your kindness?" I remember. Suddenly, he pulled me gently into his embrace and murmured in my ear, "Your highness, let's live well together from now on. As long as you're here with me, your heart with me, I'll treat you well." I breathed in the familiar yet unfamiliar scent on his skin, a whirlwind of emotions washing over me, leaving me at a loss for words. I remained silent, and Zhuangqiong showed no impatience. He simply held me, his embrace tightening as if determined to coax words from me. I sighed. General, do you know how long I've waited to hear these words? If only you'd said them sooner. He brushed against my ear, whispering, I know everything. In the past, I was the one at fault. I neglected you. But it won't happen again. I smiled. He didn't know a damn thing. How long had I waited for him? How many times had I died for him? The pain I endured, could it truly be summed up as neglect? News of Yuelang reached me again before autumn began. I was still lingering in bed when Yunyao burst in and laid all her cards on the table. My lord will come to rescue you, she said. But only if you reveal the secret location where Zhuang Qiong hides his troops. I wasn't surprised. After all, I hadn't lived several lifetimes for nothing. When I saw the wing tattoo on her forearm earlier, I knew she was Zhou Yuanshua's spy planted in the princess's residence. I live quite comfortably now, I replied. Why would I need your master to rescue me? Yun Yao retorted. You truly intend to aid Zhuang Qiong's rebellion? Being a fallen princess isn't so easy. I propped myself up and yawned, smiling as I replied. The general is a man of honor. I've aided him greatly, and he has promised to raise Xian'er under my care. When he ascends the throne, I shall be empress, the mother of his eldest son. Xian'er is Yun Yao's son. A few days ago, Zhuang Qiong ordered him brought to my chambers to be raised. Ever since, Yun Yao's eyes have grown dull. When I brought this up again, her eyes flashed with malice. After a long moment, she forced out, Princess. His sweet words are only meant to win your favor. Once your kingdom falls and your family is destroyed, will he treat you as he does now? Do not forget how he treated me when I first entered the mansion, nor how he treated you. How can you trust the honeyed words of one who holds no true heart? I scoffed in response. Zhuang Qiong is untrustworthy. But Zhou Yuanshua is? He disguised himself as a courtier to please me. He knows exactly why. If Zhuang Qiong lacks sincerity, does that mean he possesses it? Once he disposes of Zhuang Qiong, won't his next blade fall upon our royal house? You're mistaken. I don't know how Zhuang Qiong charmed you, but think for yourself. In all the months our lord spent with you, did he ever show the slightest hint of exploitation? Your Chu kingdom spans vast lands, and our Zhou dynasty has no desire to expend effort conquering it. Yet constant strife between our nations persists. Our lord's current actions were meant to support Zhuang Qiong as the new emperor and secure a peace treaty. Who could have foreseen? Ha! He fell in love with you. If not for you, how could he have driven Zhuang Qiong to such a bitter, life or death conflict? Don't you still understand his true feelings? Yun Yao wiped her tears. Mentioning Yuelang, she grew so emotional she nearly choked, glaring at me with utter resentment. I stared at her in silence. She was right about one thing. During the time Yuelang was by my side, he never asked me unnecessary questions, only shared laughter and playfulness. But I refused to dwell on those memories. Just thinking of him made me feel so wrong that tears would spill. I always got stuck in my own stubbornness, unable to believe that a heartless madman could truly love me with all his heart. Yun Yao and I stared at each other for a long time, our eyes red. She asked in a low voice, Princess, are you truly choosing Zhuang Qiong? Have you fallen for him? I buried my face in the pillow. Images of Zhuang Qiong and Yuelang flashed through my mind. Whom should I believe? Whom should I not? I'd struggled through countless lifetimes, finally glimpsing hope for survival. Yet fate gave me a gentle nudge, sending me tumbling back to this crossroads. But was survival what I truly sought? No. What I'd pitifully, desperately pursued with every ounce of my being was love. I summoned Ying Ying and had her fetch paper and ink. As she watched me write down the words betraying Zhuang Qiong stroke by stroke, she shook her head tearfully, pleading, Princess, you've finally reconciled with the prince consort. Don't listen to the schemer's slander. Princess. I shoved the note into her hands and gritted my teeth, ordering her to deliver it to Yun Yao. Princess. You won't regret today's decision? Yun Yao took the note, her brows and eyes relaxing. She gave me a slight nod, made her promise, and strode away. Ying threw herself onto my bedside, wailing like a ghost. Anyone unaware might have thought she was mourning my death. Why can't you just use your brain? I stroked her hair, sighing helplessly. Well, let her be my clumsy little burden, it's fine. I rose, washed, dressed, and timed my steps precisely to reach the study. Zhuang Qiong sat at his desk. I knelt before him with a thud. What is the princess's meaning? His voice sounded unchanged from usual. I took a deep breath and said solemnly, General, I have something to tell you, but I fear you won't believe me. He rose and helped me up, smiling calmly. Speak slowly. I'm listening. I laid out everything that had happened that morning to Zhuang Qiong. He remained silent for a long while. I bit my lip and asked, General, do you not believe me? Is it because Yin Yao bore your child that you think I'm framing her as Zhou Yuanshuo's spy? Your servant was merely astonished and momentarily lost for words. He narrowed his eyes, fixing me with a piercing stare as if trying to see through me. I am deeply grateful, Princess, for coming to warn me. But if you chose to stand with me, why did you reveal the hidden troop location to Yun Yao? I took his hand, my expression cold. I hate Zhou Yuanshuo. Therefore, I beg you to deploy your forces and catch him like a fish in a barrel, before he can cause more trouble. Zhuang Qiong's gaze flickered. Very well. He chuckled softly, gently rubbing my nose. Indeed. How could I have failed to consider turning the tables? Your Highness is truly wise. I must admit I've been wrong about you. He and I discussed it and decided to closely monitor Yun Yao's movements while waiting to see how things unfolded, so as not to alert the enemy prematurely. Stepping out of the study, Ying let out a long sigh of relief. Her previously worried expression vanished, replaced by a flurry of chatter. Princess, you nearly scared the life out of me. I truly thought you were siding with the enemy. I smiled faintly, composed myself, and patted her shoulder. Ying, in this life, the hardest and most dreaded thing is choosing the wrong side. As for which direction your arm bends, no one will care. She looked at me with a half-understanding expression. Then, Princess, are we bending in the right direction or the wrong one now? I pinched her plump cheek. You little minx. Always giving me tough questions. I don't know if it's right or wrong. I've simply done everything in my power. As for the outcome, I believe the moment of truth will come soon enough. After deciding to capture Zhou Yuanshuo alive, Zhuang Qiong laid a trap, waiting for him to walk into it. That evening before dinner, Zhuang Qiong, who hadn't been seen in ages, made time to dine with me. We strike tonight, he suddenly announced. My hand paused mid-bowl. I set down my chopsticks and ladled him a bowl of soup with a smile. It's cold tonight. Warm yourself with this soup. You wouldn't want to catch a chill before returning tomorrow. Tomorrow. If the one returning isn't me, Princess, would you be sad? I fully understood Zhuang Qiong's apprehension toward Zhou Yuanshuo. After all, despite his pride, he had suffered repeated defeats at Zhou Yuanshuo's hands. Facing him again, the psychological pressure was inevitably heavy. I smiled reassuringly at him. I'll wait for your return with peace of mind. On the day I entered the palace, I wrote a secret letter hidden in my sleeve, requesting Mother to ally with Zhou Yuanshuo. The price was ceding 3 border cities to the Zhou kingdom. If Mother agreed, Li Kuo's promotion would serve as the signal. Though Li Kuo is Zhuang Qiong's man, he has only recently taken command of the Imperial Guard. Naturally, He cannot match the stature my maternal grandfather, the Marquis of Anping, holds in their hearts. I suspect Li Kuo has now been eliminated by the Marquis of Anping's agents. Tonight, the Imperial Guards will assist Zhou Yuanshua in capturing the traitor Zhuang Qiong. Zhuang Qiong. He won't be returning. At dawn, a misty drizzle began to fall. I sat by the south window, watching the world shrouded in a hazy fog. A figure approached through the mist, its outline gradually sharpening. A curved blade in his left hand, a rose in his right. He reached my window and hopped in, gripping the frame. It's so chilly, why leave the window open? He settled onto my chaise longue, the chill he brought sending a shiver down my spine. My eyes reddened as I teased him. What if I hadn't left the door open? How would you have gotten in? He, who never walked properly, dared ask such a ridiculous question. Seeing my tears welling up, he chuckled softly, pinned the rose to my temple, and told me not to cry. Princess, this thing I plucked on a whim isn't worth much. But if you like it, just reward me with a smile, that'd make me happy. Blood smeared everywhere on him, wounds covering his chest and back. Last night must have been a fierce battle. I forced a faint smile, then hugged him close, gently stroking his neck as I whispered in his ear, "You worked so hard. Sleep now. The pain will be gone when you wake." After sitting motionless all night, the weight in my throat finally settled back into my stomach. The one who returned was Yuelang. He had won. I had won the bet. On the third day of Yuelang's unconsciousness, the imperial physician sighed as he informed me that he had been poisoned with a strange toxin. The entire Imperial Medical Bureau was powerless. To cure the poison, we needed the poisoner. I ordered Ying to take Xianer and accompany me to the Imperial prison. In the deepest dungeon, where the worst criminals were held, Zhuang Qiong knelt on the ground, his hands bound to two separate posts. His head hung limply, his body filthy. The once mighty general now resembled nothing more than a rag doll. Xianer wailed loudly from his swaddling clothes. The sound made Zhuang Qiong's body tremble. He lifted his gaze to meet mine. His vacant eyes suddenly sharpened with fury. He strained against the iron chains, desperate to lunge forward. "Why? Why?" he roared, as if he could devour me alive. Once he calmed slightly, I pressed him directly, "Where is the antidote?" Zhuang Qiong paused, raising an eyebrow in disdain as he countered, "Ha! I thought you came specifically to see me. Turns out it was for him." "What? Have you truly fallen for him?" He spat on the ground, chuckling coldly. Gone was his usual composure, his voice now carried a threat. "If I die, he won't survive either. You must die." Seeing my ruthlessness, Zhuang Qiong's expression faltered, tinged with sorrow. "But for the sake of our past as husband and wife, I'll make a deal with you. Hand over the antidote, and I guarantee your child will grow up safely." Ying cradled Xianer as she approached. The boy blinked his large eyes at Zhuang Qiong. Father and son gazed at each other for a long moment. But Zhuang Qiong turned his face away, refusing to cooperate. "I'm in no hurry," he said, pulling a small knife from his sleeve. "Zhuang Qiong, do you know why you lost? You discovered Yin Yao's true identity far too late. You placed far too much trust in her loyalty. Did you truly believe that a single child would make her wholeheartedly devoted to you? Not everyone is like you, or like your parents, who cherished their children above all else. Yin Yao is nothing but a troublemaker. For wealth and glory, she straddles the fence, playing both sides like a double agent. How could such a person ever be trusted? How did you know Yin Yao betrayed Zhou Yuanshua?" Zhuang Qiong couldn't fathom it. "How did you inform him? Every move you made was under my watch. The day I entered the palace, his men questioned me, why didn't I keep the appointment on the 19th day of the 7th month? Who warned me? under your tight surveillance. Only Yun Yao could have contacted me. Yet she never told me. When a puppet develops its own thoughts. That's the beginning of betrayal. Zhou Yuanshua understood this principle far better than I ever could. When I told his men I knew nothing of any 19th of July, he understood the message the moment it reached his ears. What followed was feigning ignorance while playing along with Zhuang Qiong and Yun Yao's schemes, ultimately ensnaring them all. You were pretending from the start. Playing dumb before me. Feigning confusion before Yun Yao. Acting deeply devoted before Zhou Yuanshua. You did this deliberately. Is that right? Zhuang Qiong roared at me. I drew my small knife across Xin'er's wrist. No need for further explanation, I wasn't here to answer questions. Xin'er immediately wailed in pain. Zhuang Qiong whipped his head around. Expressionless. I held Xin'er's hand as a bead of blood dripped from his small palm, splattering onto Zhuang Qiong's face. From this moment on, every teacup's time, this child will bear a new scar. When his blood runs dry, the Zhuang lineage will be severed. Think carefully, is Zhou Yuanshua's life worth you being cut off without descendants? Zhuang Qiong glared at me, his eyes bloodshot, breathing heavy and rapid like a cornered beast. That night, he'd done the same, used Yingying's blood to force me into submission. How could a devil like Zhou Yuanshua be worth this? Zhuang Qiong practically ground the words out between clenched teeth. I offered no reply, flipping Xin'er's palm over and slashing it once more. To the world, Yueling might be a monster and Zhuang Qiong a saint. But to me, he was the one who severed the waterweed dragging me down to the lake's depths. In those suffocating days, Yueling was my oxygen. Soon, Xin'er's hand was stained crimson. Zhuang Qiong, tears streaming down his face, gritted his teeth and spat. Enough. He gave me the antidote formula. Fine, he said, then burst into laughter. You and him will never have a good ending. Save him, and you'll regret it. Seeing my indifference, he laid it out plainly. Princess, you knew Yueling was Zhou Yuanshua from the very first moment you saw him. Didn't you? I didn't deny it. Zhou Yuanshua bore a black moon on his shoulder. I wasn't blind. How could I not recognize his identity when we were naked together? You've been using him from the start. You made him fall for you. Ensuring any alliance between us was impossible, right? Moonlight streamed through the iron bars, illuminating Zhuang Qiong's bitter defiance. He laughed maniacally, asking me, aren't you curious how he knew you knew his identity? That first night you were with him, you called out his name. You didn't know, did you? Yun Yao said. You piqued Zhou Yuanshua's interest. He wanted to see what you were really up to. Now he knows. Do you think someone like him would willingly be used? He won't let you off the hook. I blinked and laughed along. Suddenly, Zhuang Qiong seemed rather pitiful. You might not believe this. General. He froze when I called him General. You've killed me 7 times already, by fire. Poisoned wine. Blades. Clubs. This is the first time I've managed to turn the tables. My life has been an endless escape game from the start. Heaven gave me nothing. I was defenseless, unable to fight or flee. It toyed with me like a fish out of water, yet forgot to erase my memories. Coincidentally, the most crucial skill in any game is accumulating experience. One day, it suddenly dawned on me, though I couldn't defeat Zhuang Qiong, someone in this world surely could. So I set my sights on Zhou Yuanshua. The plan unfolded step by step. I reasoned that if I couldn't defeat Zhuang Qiong in this lifetime, I had the next. And the next after that. One day, he would fall by my hand. From that day forward, I would finally be the cat, and he the mouse. As for why Zhou Yuanshua knew I recognized his identity from the start, naturally, it was because of his name. I deliberately called it out for him to hear. I smiled at Zhuang Qiong. as he stared at me in disbelief. I explained, after all. Someone once said love begins with curiosity. A man like Zhou Yuanxua, once he falls in love, does so with unwavering devotion. I know his future is bright, while I shall stand upon his shoulders, overlooking the mortal world. Friends, allow me to reintroduce myself. I am the doomed princess of a fallen kingdom, currently clinging to life by a thread, about to embark on a romance strategy. My target is the mad king Zhou Yuanxua, a man whose backstory of patricide, matricide, and fratricide sounds utterly unreliable. But what does it matter? My life is an endless looping game. If I lose this round, I'll simply win back in the next. The end.